The first thing Clara Morgan saw after the bandages were removed was the dull white ceiling of St. Augustine's Hospital. The second thing she saw was a nurse's face, blurry, smiling, trembling at the edges like a photograph caught in the rain. "It worked," the nurse whispered. "You're going to see again." Clara blinked, light stabbing into her pupils like knives. But she nodded, overwhelmed with the flood of sensation. After nearly 5 years in darkness, she could see. Not clearly, not yet, but it was enough. Her corneal transplant had been a success. A donor had been found. She hadn't asked for details. All she'd been told was that the donor was young, healthy, and had died in a tragic accident. A part of her had wondered about the life behind the eyes. But the moment she saw her own reflection, bandaged, tired, but hers again, she decided to leave the past in the past. That was her first mistake. 3 days after Clara returned home, the dreams began. She would wake in sweat, heart hammering, the afterimage of a red-lit room pulsing behind her eyelids. Each night, the vision grew clearer. Dark red wallpaper, a long mirror, and a shadow in the corner. Then came the images in waking hours. It started while brushing her teeth, just a flicker like a glitch. Instead of her plain bathroom, she saw the red room again, a glint of metal, a knife on the floor. She gasped, stumbling back. The image disappeared. She told herself it was stress, the adjustment, post-surgery trauma, until she saw the face. The man. He appeared in the grocery store, not in person, but in her vision, reflected in the freezer glass. He had dark eyes, too calm, a scar on his cheek. Smiling, she turned around. No one was there. Later, she saw him again, this time in her living room window. But when she ran outside, the street was empty. Clara began to wonder if she was losing her mind. So she did what she always did when fear clawed up her throat. She visited Aunt Lydia, her godmother and therapist. "You said you're seeing things that feel real," Lydia asked carefully. "They don't feel real. They are real. I can feel the cold in the red room. I can hear footsteps. I can feel her." Clara caught herself. "It's like I'm seeing someone else's memories." Lydia frowned. "You think it's connected to the surgery?" Clara nodded. Lydia leaned forward. "What exactly do you know about your donor?" That night, Clara searched the internet for recent deaths, matching her donor profile. Young, female, no family, accident. But she found something else instead. Natalie Byrne, 27, a gifted pianist, died last month from a brutal murder, stabbed repeatedly in her apartment. Her eyes had been donated through an emergency program. And in the article's side photo, behind the police tape, Clara saw it. The red room. Same wallpaper, same mirror, and standing next to the officers in the photo, unlabeled, unnoticed, was the man with the scar. Clara couldn't sleep. She stared at the photo on her phone, the one from the news article. The man with the scar, the red room. Natalie Byrne had not died in an accident. She had been murdered, brutally, and somehow Clara's new eyes had seen it all. But how could they still remember? She researched late into the night. There were theories, residual memory and organ transplants, cellular memory, but nothing definitive. Still, case after case popped up, people gaining new tastes, talents, even dreams. after receiving another's organs. None of them mentioned seeing a killer. The violinist Natalie had been a rising star in the symphony circuit. Clara found an old performance video, Natalie on stage, eyes closed, fingers dancing across piano keys. The same eyes Clara now saw through. The music was haunting. Clara recognized it, not from her own memory, but from her visions. The melody played in the red room, over and over, like a death march. Natalie had been reliving her performances before she died, or worse, during. Clara emailed the article's journalist. No response. She found the detective's name, Dale Morgan, no relation. She called, left a message. But the more she searched, the more pieces fell into place. Natalie lived just 3 blocks from Clara, and the man with the scar, Clara had seen him on her own street. That night, the visions came back, stronger, clearer. She was in the red room again. She could smell the metallic tang of blood. She turned her head and saw the man. Not just his face this time, his hands, gloved, holding a knife. He wasn't surprised to see her. He smiled. Then she looked down at her own body, pale, lifeless, blood soaking into a white piano bench. Clara woke up screaming, breaking and entering the next morning. Clara stood in front of Natalie Burns' old apartment building. She had to see it, to prove to herself that it was real. The door was locked. A "For Rent" sign hung crooked in the window. She picked the lock with trembling fingers. Lydia would kill her if she knew. But this wasn't about rules anymore. The apartment was small, clean, too clean, like someone had tried to erase the violence. But as Clara walked through the hallway, her vision doubled. Overlaying the room in front of her was the vision. The red glow, the bloodstains. She reached the mirror. There it was, the same crack, the same height. She raised a hand, and behind her, a shadow moved. She spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. Then she saw something glinting beneath the floorboards. A metal clasp. She pried it loose. Inside, a hidden compartment, a notebook, blood-stained, Natalie's journal. Clara sat on the floor, reading the final entries. "He watches me at every show. I told the police. They didn't listen. He smiles when I play the nocturnes. I think he knows I'm afraid. He was outside my door last night. I heard the knock 3 times. I didn't answer. If anything happens to me, check the piano. I'm not crazy." Clara stood slowly. Her breath clouded the mirror. Behind her, nothing. She opened the piano bench. Inside, an envelope. Inside that, a photo. The man with the scar, standing beside Natalie with a name written in pen. Dr. Adrian Mallory. Clara sat in her car, hands trembling around the photo of the man with the scar. Dr. Adrian Mallory. She searched the name online. There he was, chief neurologist at St. Augustine's Hospital, the same hospital where she'd had her transplant surgery. Her stomach turned. She remembered the surgical team vaguely. Masks, gloves, moving shadows under bright lights. Had he been there? She found his staff profile. Grinning headshot, pristine credentials, a dozen glowing reviews. The scar on his cheek was barely visible. He lived in the upscale district just outside town, and Natalie's journal said he'd stalked her. Why hadn't anyone believed her? Clara visited Lydia again. She showed her the photo, the journal, told her everything. Lydia listened in silence, her eyes dark. "This is serious, Clara. If what you're saying is true, this man could be extremely dangerous. I think he killed Natalie, and I think he knows I have her eyes." Lydia swallowed. "You need to be careful. You can't do this alone." I think I have to," Clara said quietly. "Natalie tried to warn someone. No one listened. I have to finish what she started." Lydia reached across the table, gripping her hand. "Just promise me you'll be safe." Clara nodded, but she wasn't sure that was still possible. That night, the visions changed. She was no longer just seeing Natalie's death. She was living it, feeling it. The cold tiles under her bare feet, the piano notes echoing across the blood-red walls, the sudden shadow in the doorway, the blade. She jolted awake, screaming, the sensation of warm blood still on her skin. She stared into the darkness, and then on the wall across from her bed, she saw writing, not paint, blood, one word, watching. She ran to the bathroom, heart in her throat. Was she hallucinating? But the wall was clean now, nothing there. She didn't go to the police. She knew how that would go, just like it had with Natalie. A grieving girl, paranoid after surgery. Instead, she scheduled a consultation at the hospital. Said she was experiencing visual disturbances after her transplant. Requested Dr. Adrian Mallory personally. He greeted her with that same disarming smile. "Miss Morgan, I understand you've had some post-operative concerns." She sat down across from him, pulse pounding. "Yes," she said. "Strange visions, dreams. I've been seeing things. Someone else's memories." Dr. Mallory's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "And what exactly have you been seeing?" he asked. Clara leaned forward, her voice steady. A red room, a mirror, a knife, a murder. The silence between them stretched like wire. Then he smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "You've been under a lot of stress," he said smoothly. "Might be wise to speak with someone about these hallucinations." "I already have. I've also spoken with Natalie Burns' family, and her therapist, and a journalist who's reopened her case. That part was a lie, but it worked." Mallory's face went pale, and then, just for a moment, Clara saw it. The same smile from the dream. The one he gave Natalie. That night, Clara found her apartment door slightly open. Inside, everything was untouched, except for her mirror. There, scrawled in red lipstick, were 3 words. "I know you." She called Lydia, panicked. "Get out of there," Lydia said. "Now." "I can't. If I run, he wins. He won't stop. You're too close." Clara hung up and stared at the mirror. Natalie had tried to run. She wouldn't make the same mistake. Clara packed a small bag. She didn't tell Lydia. She couldn't risk it. She had one plan. Go back to where it all started. Natalie's apartment. She knew Dr. Mallory would come for her. He was watching. He always had been. But this time, she'd be ready. She brought a voice recorder, a hidden camera, pepper spray, a small kitchen knife. It wasn't much, but it was something. She waited in the red-lit room. The piano was still there. Clara pressed a few keys, just like in her visions. The haunting melody echoed through the room, like a memory refusing to die. Then she heard it. 3 knocks. The monster revealed he stepped into the room like he belonged there. Adrian Mallory wore a calm expression, but his eyes burned with something darker, something ancient. He closed the door behind him. "You should have stayed quiet, Clara." She hit record on the device in her pocket. "So it's true," she said, rising. "You killed her." He chuckled, slow and low. "She wouldn't stop playing that damn piano, wouldn't stop ignoring me. I gave her everything, my time, my obsession, but she wouldn't love me." He stepped closer. "So I made her listen, one final performance, a duet of screams and silence." Clara's breath caught in her throat. "You're insane." "I'm enlightened." He pulled something from his coat, a scalpel. As he lunged, Clara ducked, knocking over the piano bench. The vision surged in her mind like lightning. Natalie's final moments, the pain, the betrayal. But this time, it didn't paralyze her. It fueled her. She slashed with the kitchen knife. Missed. He struck her shoulder. White-hot pain. She screamed but grabbed the recorder from her pocket and threw it out the window. "You'll never hide this again," she spat. Mallory snarled, lunging again, but Clara slammed the lid of the piano down on his hand. The scalpel clattered to the floor. She grabbed it. And then, for just a moment, she saw through Natalie's eyes again, and she didn't hesitate. Police arrived minutes later. A neighbor had called in the commotion. They found Clara bruised, bloodied, sobbing on the floor. Dr. Adrian Mallory lay unconscious, the scalpel buried in his thigh. The recorder was recovered. His confession was clear, unmistakable. He was arrested. The case reopened. Headlines screamed across the news. "Renowned surgeon arrested in cold case murder of rising music." Star Natalie Byrne. Clara testified. So did Lydia. Natalie's family thanked her through tears. And Natalie's journal, along with the vision of the Red Room, finally faded from Clara's mind. But not all stories end. Weeks passed. Clara stood before her mirror, healing. She stared into her eyes. They were hers now, and yet, sometimes, in the corner of her reflection, she still saw the Red Room, still heard the music, still felt the weight of Natalie's final gaze. Watching, always watching, not out of fear, but out of protection. Some memories don't belong to us. Some eyes never forget.